Albanian-American actor Jim Belushi always brought a positive energy to the screen. His films were very popular in the 1990s, and it seemed like his career was heading in the right direction. However, starting in the mid-1990s, Jim Belushi's films became less frequent and steadily worse. It's a pretty unremarkable story. Unlike his older brother, John Belushi, who quickly broke into the big leagues with his roles in 1941, The Blues Brothers, and Neighbors, Jim Belushi never reached that level of recognition. While John Belushi was hugely popular with American audiences, it was a different story for Jim. Of course, he had his fans, but none of his films became major hits, and most of the movies he was known and loved for internationally flopped at the US box office. Today, let's talk about Jim Belushi's career, which, when you really take a closer look, almost seems like the guy was under some kind of ancient curse. Jim Belushi's career actually began before his brother John died of an overdose. Jim's first major role was in Michael Mann's film Thief. Although the film wasn't a big success, it received praise at several film festivals and was well liked by audiences. John Belushi often visited the set, happy to see his brother doing well. Every time he came by, part of the crew, with him leading the charge, would head out to get drunk. Many people blame the film's modest box office numbers on James Caan, who played the lead. He wasn't a big box office draw and didn't manage to bring in audiences. All the major stars the director had originally approached turned the film down due to its small budget. Not long after Thief hit theaters, John Belushi passed away. It was a huge shock to Hollywood. John had already become a cult icon thanks to his comedic talent, especially his work on Saturday Night Live. For Jim, it was a heartbreaking loss. He stepped away from the film industry for almost 4 years, only taking on a couple of minor roles during that time. His real comeback came in 1986, with the film About Last Night. The movie also marked the big screen debut of director Edward Zwick, who had previously worked in television and would later go on to direct Legends of the Fall, The Last Samurai, and Blood Diamond. The film's box office success launched the careers of nearly everyone involved, including Jim Belushi and Demi Moore. However, while Demi Moore gradually became a superstar, Belushi hit a long streak of box office flops. About Last Night had been in development since the early 1980s. Originally, John Belushi was supposed to star, but Jim asked him not to because the film was based on a well-known David Mamet play, where Jim had already played the lead. People were always comparing the two brothers, and Jim didn't want to make it worse. John agreed, and the film was shelved for a while. After that movie, Jim appeared in 2 big-budget films of the time, Little Shop of Horrors and Jumpin' Jack Flash. His role in the Whoopi Goldberg film was tiny. In Little Shop of Horrors, his part was a bit larger, so the film's failure hit harder. Despite a $30 million budget, which was a lot for that time, the movie was a total flop. Afterward, Belushi teamed up with Oliver Stone. Stone had just found major success with Platoon and was aiming to make another big splash. He hoped to do that with Salvador, but no one believed in the project, and he even had to mortgage his house to help fund it. One of the main roles went to Jim Belushi. In the end, with a $5 million budget, the film only made $1.5 million at the box office. What saved it were the strong critical reviews and a few Oscar nominations. James Woods even scored a Best Actor nod. 1987 brought Jim another failure. The low-budget crime drama The Principal made just $19 million in the US against its $11 million budget. While the studio probably broke even a few years later, it didn't do anything good for Belushi's career. The lead role was originally meant for Michael Keaton, but he dropped out at the last second when Tim Burton offered him the lead in Beetlejuice. So, the role in The Principal ended up going to Belushi. That same year, Jim had another total flop with the comedy Real Men, which didn't even make $1 million at the US box office. Then came 1988, a year that was supposed to turn Belushi's career around. He landed a role in a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose star was rising with every project. Red Heat was Arnold's most expensive movie at that point. It was directed by Walter Hill, who had previously made hits like 48 Hours and Brewster's Millions. Walter Hill gave Jim Belushi full freedom with the humor in the film. Almost all the funny scenes and lines with Belushi were his own creations. The director also made Arnold lose 10 pounds, while Belushi was told to gain the same amount. Walter Hill felt that while Russians should be huge to match the stereotype, Arnold was just too massive. As for Belushi, Hill wanted him to play a stereotypical chubby American cop who loved donuts. During post-production, the film ran into some issues. After poor test screenings, it was heavily edited. The filmmakers removed an entire storyline featuring Victor's wife, played by Gina Gershon. As a result, the final third of the movie ended up feeling rushed. Originally, after the hotel shootout, there was supposed to be an even bigger sequence where the police, led by Gershon's character, tried to catch Victor at a baseball game. Despite a $29 million budget, the movie only made $34 million in the US. For Arnold, it was his worst box office performance between 1986 and the early 2000s. The film isn't generally considered a complete failure, mostly thanks to Coralco Pictures, who sold the rights to Red Heat to a bunch of smaller distributors around the world. Since Arnold was already a major star, his films were selling like hotcakes. Still, it was a setback for his career, and the audience ratings show it. It's hard to deny that without the meme-worthy charm that unintentionally turned the film into a comedy, Red Heat would probably be Arnold's worst movie of the 1980s. In other words, Jim Belushi didn't gain much from starring alongside Schwarzenegger, except for the fact that Arnold enjoyed working with him and later kept offering him small cameo roles in his films. Many believe the movie was hurt by the declining public interest in communist-themed stories. By the late 1980s, many Hollywood films with those themes were flopping. The only exception was The Hunt for Red October. Along with Red Heat, Stallone's Rambo 3 also underperformed at the box office. 1989 could have been the most successful year of Belushi's career, and technically it was, but he had 2 flops for every box office hit. The only clear win was K9. But even there's a catch. While international audiences rate the movie fairly well, it only scores 6 out of 10 in the US. Critics tore K9 apart, and since it wasn't a massive hit, it didn't really boost Belushi's career much. The $17 million film made $78 million at the box office. There was a rather amusing situation at the US box office. Pet Sematary topped the charts during its opening weekend, while Jim Belushi's K9 debuted at number 2. The 2 films held off all competition for 2 weeks straight. This fact is fairly well known, but it's still worth mentioning. Jerry Lee, the dog from K9, was a real police dog who died in the line of duty 2 years after the film was released. In theory, he could have lived long enough to appear in the sequel, which went straight to video in 1999. Along with K9, Homer and Eddie and the Palermo Connection also flopped. Homer and Eddie, directed by Andrei Konchalovsky, couldn't even find a US distributor. It was only released theatrically in a few European countries and went straight to video almost everywhere else. 1990 brought Belushi 2 even bigger failures. Both Mr. Destiny and Taking Care of Business completely tanked. As was often the case with Belushi's movies, they got higher ratings from international viewers, but only mediocre ones in the US. And the critics? They absolutely tore both films apart. Some might not understand why American critics are so harsh, but the reason lies in how closely both films resembled older hits. For example, since the 1947 film It's a Wonderful Life is a beloved American classic, it's no surprise that Mr. Destiny, which had a similar premise, was poorly received by US audiences. Naturally, the critics reacted even more strongly. A little later, another movie starring a well-known actor also ran into trouble. Despite Nicolas Cage being at the height of his popularity, The Family Man barely managed to break even. Critics were rough on it too, although American audiences responded a bit more positively that time. In 1991, Belushi experienced the biggest flop of his career with Curly Sue. Jim's bad luck hit a new low with this one. The film was directed by the legendary American writer-director John Hughes, who had written scripts for dozens of box office comedies, including National Lampoon's Vacation, Home Alone, and Beethoven. He'd also directed 7 films before Curly Sue. Not only were they all profitable, but some, like The Breakfast Club and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, became cult favorites in the US, so this was a big opportunity for Belushi. Out of all the films where Belushi played a leading role, Curly Sue had the largest budget, but it ended up being a total failure. Even worse, the gap in ratings between US and international audiences was wider than with K9. The movie got a 5.9 in the US, but over a 7 from international viewers, and more people rated it abroad. While Belushi's earlier films were just poorly reviewed by critics, this time the reviews were brutal. The failure devastated John Hughes, and he never directed another film. Belushi, meanwhile, starred in Once Upon a Crime, which not only bombed, but also earned several Golden Raspberry nominations. Naturally, none of this helped Belushi's career. If his films had made big money at the box office like Adam Sandler's comedies, nobody would have cared about the reviews. But they didn't. So, Belushi tried to shake off his comedic image by starring in the thriller Traces of Red, released in the wake of Basic Instinct's success. Traces of Red also flopped, and after that, Belushi stopped getting good scripts. His appearance in Last Action Hero in 1993, invited by Schwarzenegger, was probably his last big screen role that people actually remember. He also had brief appearances in Jingle All the Way, gang-related and retroactive, but after those bombs, he moved over to television, and as he stopped taking care of himself, started gaining weight. Some might think Belushi's weight gain was the reason he stopped getting good movie roles. But, based on the box office numbers, it seems more like a result than the cause. These days, Belushi pops up now and then as in supporting roles in films and TV. For example, he appeared in Roman Polanski's The Ghostwriter, and some fans might have spotted him in Twin Peaks, but Jim doesn't seem too upset about it. He lives in Oregon and grows cannabis, which might explain his good mood. Still, it's a shame his career never really took off, and that he disappeared from Hollywood's A-list so quickly. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.